to the Two Ton Nerds. As always, my name is Max James. It's day 11 of the 31 Days of Fright horror movie project year 2, and tonight I am finishing up the last two installments in the Resident Evil film series, Resident Evil Afterlife, and as well as Resident Evil Retribution. I have around 3 hours of movie to watch, so I'm going to just jump right into watching them, and as always, I'll be right back in a few seconds to tell you what you need to know about these movies. I just got done watching Resident Evil Afterlife, and as well as Resident Evil Retribution. I have a lot to say, so I'm going to just jump into telling you what you need to know, and I have several different categories to get through, and first up is the story. The story of Resident Evil Afterlife follows the events of Extinction, with Alice and her clone army of Alices take over or infiltrate the hive in Tokyo run by Albert Wesker. And they just tear it to pieces, killing everybody, and they're all very superpowered, just like Alice, with telekinesis and stuff like that. And it was a really cool opening sequence, but eventually the real Alice and Albert Wesker kind of have a confrontation after he kind of decides to purge the Tokyo hive, killing all the clones and everybody inside it, and it was just a really cool sequence. And Albert finally jams his needle right in the side of Alice's neck, taking away her power, neutralizing the T-virus within her, and making her human once again. And then shortly after that, the plane crashes carrying the two of them, and it kind of jumps 6 months after that, and this is where it really follows the band of survivors at the end of Extinction, after Claire and the Kmart kind of go off to Arcadia in Alaska, and that's where Alice is headed, and she goes there and finds nobody. It's just a graveyard full of airplanes, and there's nobody there, and she's like, maybe she is the only one left in the entire world, but that's wrong. Claire shows up, and she doesn't have a memory, and she has this weird parasite kind of thing stuck to her chest, and it kind of has this little side effect where it loses her memory, and it's just really cool. And so they kind of just hop in a plane and just start heading down the western seaboard, and they make it to Los Angeles, and they see a bunch of survivors on this giant building surrounded by the undead. I mean, it's surrounded by the undead, and it comes to find out they land, and it's like, hey, are you from Arcadia? And it's like, how can you see Arcadia from Alaska? And it's like, no, Arcadia is a boat just right offshore, and it's within seeing distance, and it's just like, oh, it's a boat, and makes this reveal a lot cooler, and it is very isolated, and it's everything they said. It's a boat, and so it's like that's where the plot of the movie shifts to let's get to the boat. But a few characters within the things take us with you, and it's like since there's the plane that she's been flying only seats 2, it's very suicide just to keep landing and landing. She barely made it the first time, and on top of this big building. So they have this one prisoner locked up to be revealed as Chris Redfield, Claire Redfield's sister. And it's just really cool sequence of them kind of meeting up again. It's a pretty cool epic moment within the movie where Chris and Claire kind of meet up for the first time, and then it's like okay, so it's like he has a way out and a way to get guns, and that's why they let him out. So it's like behind this steel door, it's a pacification vehicle, steel plated, can just drive all the way through. Things just don't work out well for him from there. The army is underwater, so they have to swim, and that's where they start losing cannon fodder, basically zombie fodder, throughout the movie. And they make it the armory, get some cool weapons, and they blow up the roof of the building, and they finally make it to Arcadia, and it's just not what it seems. It's actually a boat used for experiments, led by Albert Wesker. And Albert Wesker is actually infected as well, and he tried to ingest human flesh, and it just didn't go from there. And so they have this really cool action sequence between Alice, who is human still, and Albert Wesker, and they have Chris and Claire fighting along, and it's just a really cool epic game moment, and as well as movie moment. So, and from there, Albert Wesker kind of chickens out and flies away, and being defeated, and that's the last we see of him for now. And that's where Resident Evil Retribution comes in, because the ending of Afterlife is all the survivors of the experimental cargo is just kind of, which are people, are just standing on the top of the boat and just taking in the sea air and looking around, and when Umbrella ships kind of start coming in, and it just starts blowing up the boat, and we don't see what happens to Chris and Claire, but we see that Alice has been captured by Jill Valentine, who is also under the influence of that little parasite thing, and it's just really cool. And Alice is like getting tortured to find out who she's working for, and she's not giving up any answers, because basically she's just working for herself. And that's where another big game reveal kind of comes in. Ada Wong, and it's just like the first appearance of Ada Wong, even though it's not the first appearance for her red dress like in Resident Evil 1, and it's pretty cool. And from there we meet more Resident Evil characters: Barry Burton, Leon, Kennedy, and then also a return of Luther West, who is a big character in Afterlife. Then you got who else is in this movie? You got the return of Michelle Rodriguez as Rain, and then you got Colin, I can't remember his last name, as One, like he was the lead operative in Resident Evil 1, and you got Carlos Oliveira returning with Old Fair playing him. I mean, this movie is just jam-packed with people coming back, and it was just a nice reunion for everybody. But the big twist of this movie is that they're underground, but they're in a test facility, and they are just big cities are being recreated to see how the biohazard, that's how they classify it in this movie, and it's a nice throwback. It's a nice throw to the Japanese name, and so it's really cool. But each city is recreated, like New York, Tokyo, I think Moscow, and it just sees how the how the outbreak would occur in each city, and it's just really cool seeing these cities recreated in certain environments. And also you got Suburbia. It's just like kind of like run of the mill Raccoon City kind of thing, and it's really it's just really cool, nice setups. It's like the scenery keeps changing, and it's just really awesome. And that's where the real action of this movie and horror and stuff like that, it's where them trying to make it out before they sink the facility for good, and it's just really cool. And Jill's in hot pursuit of Alice to recapture her, and Rain. And also, there's also a nice twist, because there's this one sequence in Retribution where it shows Alice and Carlos kind of like living in suburbia, and like very like suburban clothes, and he's going off to work in a suit and tie, and they end up getting attacked, and she's not fighting him, and it reveals that they're clones, or basic models, like to see how these worlds would react, because you just have to keep refilling and can't really keep using people because the world has gone up basically. So they just use clones of like 50 basic people, and just happen to look like Alice and Carlos, and that's pretty cool, and it's just awesome. And she finds out this is all up, and also find this little girl, and they end up blowing up this facility that clones everybody. So they're originally the last of the clones. So, well, I know Alice isn't a clone, but the last of the little girl clone. She's deaf, and it's really awesome. Leon, he's pretty cool in this movie. He has some pretty awesome moments where he fights Rain. She injects herself with the Las Plagas virus, and she's like superhuman. And it's awesome, and Jill and Alice have this really awesome fight sequence, and Barry he has great one-liners in the movie, and he looks just like Barry Burton from the first Resident Evil game, and it was nice. And a giant liquor, like creatures. There's some new creatures in this movie. You got this like industrial size liquor, and then you got the crows kind of make a brief appearance, and the Las Plagas kind of make an appearance in these two movies. And what was the other? Oh, the Executioners from Resident Evil 5, the video game with the giant axe hammers, and it's just like, and chains. So some of the zombies are carrying chainsaws. I mean, they're all over the place with this last one, and it feels more of a video game than just like the first one, and it felt good to watch it. And I don't care what people say. It may not be Resident Evil, but knowing that the characters are from Resident Evil makes it pretty cool. So seeing them kind of brought to life more than in CG animation movies, even though those are really great too. But anyways, like I said, I kind of touched on the cast. The cast in the is great. You got Milla Jovovich returning as Alice. Then you got Carlos Oliveira, played by Ode Fair. He's back. Yeah, I can't remember his name. I think his name is Boris. I think who plays what's his name? Luther West. Then you got Leon Kennedy. Then you got Ada Wong. You got Barry Burton. Who else is in? You got Jill Valentine, played by Sienna Gilroy. I can't pronounce her name to save my life. As Jill. Then you got Rain. You got Michelle Rodriguez, and it's just these two movies are packed with characters from the game, and as well as returning members from the first movie. It was just awesome. Visuals. This is where I really want to touch on. Really want to touch on. I've seen Afterlife in IMAX 3D, and it was awesome. And I do have to commend the 3D effects, because I've seen the 3D effects in other movies, and they are just plain terrible. I mean, looking at Drive Angry with Nicolas Cage, like if you just watched it standard, oh dear God, the CG effects for the 3D are just terrible. I mean, you can tell they were fake. But if you look at the monsters and creatures and like the knives and being thrown at the screen and crows just kind of like jumping out, all this effects look like they were done at top notch, but it's also 3D. I mean, it's really cool. The zombies look better than ever, especially when they had the Las Plagas and they had the little flowering tentacles coming out of their mouth. It was just overall, it was just two great movies. And which brings me to my final thing I have to say: the classification. 1 being run of the mill, 2 best watch with a group, 3 more than average horror but adds nothing new to the horror genre, 4 it moves the horror genre forward, and 5 being a horror classic. Now, I know this is tough to say, but Resident Evil Afterlife and Resident Evil Retribution are both a 3. They're more than average horror, but adds nothing to the horror genre. I mean, I know it kind of does, but not enough to where it's like, oh, it's revolutionary. But in the sense, it is revolutionary in the sense that it's bringing video game characters to life in a good way, and I will stand by that. I mean, I know they may not look and act, but they are, at least you get them on screen, and at least it's better than Twilight adaptation. I know people say it's always better than Twilight, other things, but this is like seeing, if you want to see your characters brought to life, it could have been done worse, be honest. And so that's really all I got to say. And also, one more thing before I kind of close out. This is a zombie themed week, if you haven't noticed, with Resident Evil. And Walking Dead will be starting this Sunday as of this recording. And so tomorrow I have a nice little surprise. So As always, my name is Max James, and I'm going to go geek out.